Every year, as October draws to a close, the world changes. Leaves fall, the days grow shorter, shadows lengthen. And for one night, the 31st, millions of people around the world dress in costumes, light candles inside carved pumpkins, and open their doors to visitors who chant "trick or treat." But have you ever wondered why? Why do we carve pumpkins? Why the costumes? Why this fascination with ghosts, death, and things that go bump in the night? Halloween may seem like a fun, modern holiday, but its roots stretch back over 2,000 years into a world without electricity, where the harvest marked the line between life and death. This is the real story of Halloween, from the sacred Celtic festival of Samhain to medieval prayers for the dead, to the candy-filled celebration we know today. Stay with me to the end, because the history of Halloween is not just about ghosts and ghouls. It's a history of how humans learned to live with the idea of death itself. To truly understand Halloween, we must travel back to Iron Age Europe, around 2,000 years ago, to the world of the Celts. The Celts were farmers, warriors, and spiritual people who lived across Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and parts of northern France. They didn't follow the modern calendar, but instead divided the year into two halves, light and dark, life and death. Their year ended and began on the night of Samhain. It fell around October 31st, when the harvest was gathered and the harsh winter began. To the Celts, this night was more than just a season change. It was a moment when the veil between the worlds of the living and the dead grew thin. They believed that on this night, spirits could pass freely into the mortal realm, friendly ancestors returning to visit, but also darker forces wandering the earth. As night fell, entire villages gathered on sacred hills to light enormous bonfires. These fires were not random. They were ritual flames, meant to honor the gods and protect the people through the coming winter. From these sacred blazes, families carried home embers to relight their hearths, symbolizing unity and renewal. Offerings of crops, animals, or food were thrown into the flames to appease the spirits and ensure a prosperous year ahead. Because spirits were believed to walk among them, people disguised themselves, wearing animal skins, painted faces, or mask-like veils, to blend in, or to frighten away evil presences. This is the ancient origin of the Halloween costume. Samhain was also a night of magic and prophecy. People would toss nuts into fires to see if lovers were destined to stay together. Apples were peeled and dropped to predict initials of future spouses. Priests, called druids, performed rituals to foretell the harvest, the weather, and even the fates of individuals. To the Celts, this night wasn't about terror. It was about balance. Life and death were not opposites. They were partners in an eternal dance. When the sun rose after Samhain, they believed the world was renewed, cleansed by fire, memory, and respect for the unseen. As centuries passed, Celtic Europe was absorbed into the Roman Empire, and with Rome came new gods, new festivals, and, eventually, Christianity. The Romans celebrated Feralia, a day in late October to honor departed souls. They also held a festival for Pomona, the goddess of fruit and orchards, whose symbol was the apple. Over time, Pomona's imagery blended with Celtic Samhain rituals, giving us apple bobbing, a tradition that still survives today. By the 7th century, the Christian Church had spread across Europe. Pope Boniface IV established All Saints' Day, also called All Hallows' Day, to honor holy martyrs, first celebrated in May, but later moved to November 1st by Pope Gregory III. Why November 1st? Because it conveniently overlapped with the old Samhain celebrations. The church often Christianized existing pagan festivals, keeping the date and spirit of the old customs, but giving them new meaning. And so, the night before All Saints' Day became All Hallows' Eve, which over time, in English, became Halloween. But old habits die hard. People still lit bonfires, wore costumes, and left food for spirits. Only now, they called them souls. By the Middle Ages, around the 11th century, the church added another day to the calendar, All Souls' Day on November 2nd, dedicated to praying for all departed souls. Together, these days, October 31st, November 1st, and November 2nd, became known as All Hallowtide. But in villages across Europe, the celebrations still blended Christian faith with ancient folklore. On All Hallows' Eve, the poor, often children, went door to door begging for soul cakes, small sweet buns marked with a cross. In exchange, they promised to say prayers for the souls of the dead. This was called souling. It was both charity and superstition. People believed that each prayer helped a lost soul move from purgatory to heaven. Some wore disguises, a practice called guising. Others carried lanterns made from hollowed-out turnips, carved with grotesque faces to scare away evil spirits. Sound familiar? These are the ancestors of our trick-or-treating and jack-o'-lantern traditions. Even as the church promoted devotion, communities kept the bonfires burning. They symbolized light overcoming darkness, but also kept alive the pagan memory of Samhain. It was a night of both holiness and haunting. As Europe entered the late Middle Ages and early modern period, the old beliefs about spirits began to take a darker turn. The church increasingly associated the supernatural with the devil. Witch trials, ghost stories, and fears of sorcery spread across Europe. Halloween, once a time to honor the dead, became a night to fear them. By the 1500s, the Protestant Reformation rejected many Catholic practices, including All Saints' and All Souls' Days. In Protestant regions, Halloween customs faded. But in Catholic countries like Ireland, Scotland, and parts of France, they persisted, passed from generation to generation. In England, another holiday rose to prominence. Guy Fawkes Night on November 5th, celebrating the foiling of the Gunpowder Plot in 1605. People lit bonfires, wore masks, and burned effigies, echoes of Halloween's fires, now with a political twist. Though suppressed in some places, the idea of a night for spirits, masks, and mischief would never die. If you enjoy this journey through the haunted corridors of history, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment below with your favorite Halloween tradition. Your support helps the algorithm share these stories with more curious minds around the world. When European settlers crossed the Atlantic to the Americas, they brought with them fragments of their old traditions. But in the strictly Protestant colonies of New England, Halloween found no welcome. Puritans saw it as unholy, tied to witchcraft and popish superstition. Ironically, their fear of the supernatural did not erase old beliefs. It transformed them into something darker and far more dangerous. In the deeply religious Puritan colonies of New England, people believed that the devil was not a distant figure, but an active presence in everyday life. Misfortune was rarely seen as coincidence. Sickness, failed crops, or unexplained behavior could all be blamed on witchcraft. These anxieties erupted violently in 1692 in the small Massachusetts town of Salem. There, a group of young girls began exhibiting strange fits and convulsions, claiming they were being tormented by witches. Within months, hysteria spread like wildfire. Courts filled with accusations as neighbors turned against neighbors. Spectral evidence, dreams and visions, was accepted as proof of guilt. By the time the panic subsided, over 200 people had been accused, 30 found guilty, and 19 executed by hanging. The Salem witch trials revealed how the fear of unseen forces, once part of ancient ritual, could become a weapon in the hands of paranoia and power. It wasn't until the 19th century, with the arrival of Irish and Scottish immigrants fleeing famine and hardship, that Halloween truly took root in America. They brought with them ancient Celtic customs of Samhain, bonfires, costumes, and tales of spirits, which gradually blended with American harvest traditions, giving birth to the country's first true Halloween celebrations. In Ireland and Scotland, people had long carved turnip lanterns to ward off evil spirits. But in the New World, they discovered something much larger and easier to carve: the pumpkin. Thus, the jack-o'-lantern was born. The name jack-o'-lantern comes from an Irish folk tale about Stingy Jack, a trickster who cheated the devil and was condemned to wander the earth forever, with only a burning coal inside a hollowed-out turnip to light his way. His ghostly figure was called Jack of the Lantern. By the mid-1800s, Americans carved pumpkins in his image, merging folklore, art, and community fun. In the 1800s, Halloween evolved into a community-centered celebration. Immigrants mixed Irish, Scottish, and English customs into something uniquely American. Harvest festivals, storytelling, and games, like apple bobbing and mirror divination, became popular. Girls used these rituals to predict their future husbands, echoing the fortune-telling traditions of Samhain. But Halloween was also a night of mischief. Children and young men played pranks, tipping over outhouses, moving wagons onto roofs, and causing chaos. Newspapers of the time called it Mischief Night. By the early 20th century, communities began organizing neighborhood parties to channel this wild energy into something safe and fun. The earliest known use of the phrase trick or treat appeared in a Canadian newspaper in 1927. Children were beginning to visit homes in costume, asking for treats instead of pulling pranks. By the 1930s and 1940s, trick-or-treating spread across North America. After World War II, the baby boom and the rise of suburban neighborhoods made it explode in popularity. Candy companies saw an opportunity and seized it. By the 1950s, Halloween had become one of America's biggest consumer holidays. Television shows featured Halloween specials, schools held parades, and stores sold ready-made costumes of ghosts, witches, and movie monsters. The modern Halloween, part ancient ritual, part commercial spectacle, had fully arrived. Halloween's enduring appeal isn't just in the candy or the costumes, it's in the symbols that surround it, each one carrying layers of ancient meaning and timeless wonder. Take the pumpkin, or the jack-o'-lantern. This glowing icon began as a Celtic ritual of protection, turnips carved with faces to ward off wandering spirits during Samhain. When Irish immigrants reached America, they found pumpkins easier to carve, and so a new tradition was born. Today, that flickering orange light has become a symbol of warmth, welcome, and home during the darkening nights of autumn. Then there are masks and costumes. In ancient times, druids wore disguises to confuse spirits that roamed the earth on Samhain night. Over centuries, those disguises evolved, from ghostly shrouds to fairies, monsters, and now superheroes. In every mask we wear, there's still a trace of that ancient desire: to hide, to transform, or to safely face what frightens us. Black cats, once revered in Egypt and seen as guardians of the home, became victims of superstition in medieval Europe, unfairly linked to witchcraft and evil. Yet even then they retained their mystery, their quiet independence, and their role as protectors in folklore. Bats, owls, and ravens, all creatures of the night, became messengers between worlds, symbols of transformation and insight. Their presence in Halloween imagery reminds us of nature's deeper rhythms, that light and darkness, life and death, are forever intertwined. And then, of course, there are witches. Modern Halloween witches, with their hats and brooms, descend from ancient priestesses and wise women, healers who once guided their communities through fear and illness. Their power was rooted in nature and knowledge, a connection to the cycles of life long before it was misunderstood or feared. Even our fascination with ghosts, skeletons, and graveyards speaks to something older than fear. It reflects the same truth the Celts once believed, that death is not an ending, but a passage. By facing it, even playfully, we are reminded of the fragile beauty of life, and of the mysterious, eternal dance between the living and the dead. Though Halloween is now global, many cultures have their own ways of honoring the dead. In Mexico, people celebrate Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead, on November 1st and 2nd. Families build altars, decorate graves, and offer food, flowers, and music to welcome their ancestors. It's not about fear, it's about love. In Japan, the Obon Festival welcomes ancestral spirits each summer with lanterns and dances. In China, the Hungry Ghost Festival does much the same. In modern Europe, Halloween has re-emerged with American influence. Costume parties, horror films, and pumpkin parades, blending old and new. No matter the country, the message is the same. The living and the dead are never truly apart. So why, after thousands of years, does Halloween endure? Because it gives us something we still need. A night to explore our fears safely. In a world that hides from death, Halloween lets us face it. Playfully, collectively, beautifully. It teaches us balance, that darkness and light, laughter and fear, life and death, all belong together. From the bonfires of Samhain to the glowing pumpkins on suburban porches, the heart of Halloween remains the same. A night between worlds. Halloween began not with candy, but with fire, sacred flames burning against the cold. And though the world has changed beyond measure, that fire still burns. When we light a candle inside a pumpkin, we echo the flames of our ancestors on Celtic hills. When we wear a mask, we honor the old belief that spirits walk among us. When we give candy to children, we repeat the ancient ritual of offering food to appease the unseen. Halloween is a living link to humanity's oldest questions. What happens when we die? Can the dead hear us? And how do we live knowing that we too will one day be ghosts? So the next time you see a jack-o'-lantern glowing in the dark, remember, it's not just decoration, it's history. A story thousands of years in the making. From Samhain to All Hallows' Eve, from turnips to pumpkins, from bonfires to doorbells, Halloween reminds us that even in the darkest night, the light will always return.